Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Find Your Model Health podcast. I'm very excited to welcome on a fabulous guest today. I know all of you are going to benefit from this, and I know many of you are going to have some thought processes in common with our guest today. So, today, help me welcome on Carole Murko. So, Carole is a mindset and self-mastery and health coach, and she's dedicated to activating that inner healer that we all have, but we forget about. Carole also is a consultant for one of my favorite speakers, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I know many of you are aware of his work and also in love with his work, but she's a consultant for his company, Neurochange Solutions. She's also an instructor for Dragon's Way Qigong. She's a herbalist. She's an integrative nutrition coach, among lots of other certifications and specialties. And I could go on, Carole, but I'm going to let you just speak and everyone's going to hear how amazing you are. So first, though, we can all heal. We can all heal internally if we, dare I say, really put our mind to it. But you're a prime example of what's possible. Tell us about how you healed yourself, your journey.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on, and I'm so excited to share this magic called our body, right? Like, I mean, really, I think that's um, what's not taught. We're not taught that we are absolute magical beings and that we have the power within ourselves to heal ourselves and to create the lives that we would like to live. And so I, of course, wasn't taught that. And I was living like a typical crazy lifestyle, right? Overcommitted, a pleaser, taking care of older parents. I had stepkids, like whole package, right? Just all of that and just ignoring signs of potential imminent health disaster, right? Like I had migraine headaches frequently, and I would just, what would I do? Oh, I can't miss that meeting. I gotta pop an Excedrin, right?
Yeah.
And although that wasn't really me, like I'm not a drug person, but I didn't want to be that person who said I can't come because I have a migraine, right? It felt like a weakness.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was just I think a few years of ignoring probably signs that the universe was giving me. And then finally it just had to give me the like baseball bat across the head, right? Like it was like, okay, like you're not paying attention to us, so whack.
If you're
And
not going to stop, we're going to stop you.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so it was very bizarre. I mean, it was no symptoms, no signs whatsoever. And so I ended up with my body ended up with a theoretically incurable autoimmune eye disease that is extremely rare. I'm not even going to bother saying the name because anytime I say it, people are like, what? Um, but, and the symptoms came on like that. It was just one day I was fine, the next day it was just, my vision was just all off. Like I had floaters, I vitreous haze. I had trouble adjusting from going into light and dark, right? My retinas would just sort of strobe, right? And I was like, oh my God, something's seriously wrong. And there was something seriously wrong. So I first threw myself on the sword of the Western medical model. We all sort of have that like, oh my gosh, just heal me, please heal me, right? Like ask, the power is over there, not over here.
Yeah.
But I also was already a student of food as medicine and really spent a lot of time I was really active in my local farming community and really promoted local agriculture and eating locally and all that kind of stuff. So I was deeply in tune. And a lot of my friends, after I got diagnosed, they're like, "You're the healthiest person we know." And I go, "Well, apparently not." And I'm
Mhm.
like, and but I simultaneously started, get doing acupuncture, and I had a shaman and all these modalities were just there and I was exploring them and little pieces of all of them were helping me, but I was still not improving. And I was on a whole cocktail of drugs. And of course, when you have an orphan disease or a super rare disease and you go to a major, like I went to Boston, Mass Pioneer,
Mm,
you're a human guinea pig to them. And so it was like the first set of drugs they put me on didn't work. They're like, "Oh, well, you failed those drugs." And I'm like, "I failed?" Like, "Oh my God, I failed." And so then they put me on some others, and none of them were really doing anything except making me physically sick.
mm,
And I thought to myself, well, this is great. My eye symptoms aren't getting better and my whole body is getting sick. There's got to be a better way. And so at one point I called my doctor and I said, look, this one drug is making me throw up like The Exorcist. And I can't stay on it. And she said to me, if you don't stay on this drug, you're going to go blind.
mm,
And I hung up that phone and it was like, I don't know what happened. I just got this download from the universe and it was like, you're just going to heal yourself. You're never going back there. You're never going back there.
mm,
And that's when, sort of all these other alternatives, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, not himself personally, but his work showed up for me in the most bizarre ways, right? It's like, it wasn't like, I mean, somebody mentioned him the first time when I asked if he was at Mass Pioneer. I was like, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I'll go to him. Is he an alternative doctor at Mass Pioneer? So, so I had to be kind of lured to Dr. Joe a couple of more times through just happenstance that people were like, you would really love Dr. Joe.
mm,
You would really love Dr. Joe. And then I signed up for one of his retreats and went and I was just blown away, right? I had a true experience with the divine and ineffable, right? You can't explain it to anybody, right? Because it's your own personal experience. And I thought, okay, this is my work. I'm going to focus on this. And I literally studied his work and did the meditations. And for 7 months, he has a meditation called Walking with the Divine,
mm,
where it activates your throat chakra and you speak out loud what you want to create. And it was during those 7 months that my symptoms started just dissipating, right? But it was so slow that I almost didn't notice, right? It was
yeah.
like, and then I went back to another couple of retreats and then I became friendly with a few of the consultants that people who were already consultants and I just said, could I do this? And one of the women was like, "Oh my God, you would be so good." And I applied and I would attribute a good part of my healing to doing the work. And with what is the work? People will be like, "What is the work?"
Mm,
Um the premise is that your thoughts basically create your reality, right? And your thoughts create your destiny. And Dr. Joe has a whole formula where your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made up of how you think, the choices that you make, the your actions and behaviors that produce the experiences, and the end product of an experience is an emotion.
mm,
And so once you begin to look at your life formulaically like that, you could actually like fix anything that's going on in your life. So if you're feeling sad and you're like, oh God, I'm feeling out of sorts or whatever, you could tie that back to a thought easily, right? And then go, okay, is that thought serving me? And what choices was that thought did I have? And am I comfortable with those choices? And if I make a choice that if I've made a choice, then I either have to be okay with it or I need to like have a new thought and change my choice,
mm,
right? So and it was just basically just doing that work and doing the meditations. And also I practiced Qigong since 2012. And so I just reintroduced Qigong. And Qigong is a Chinese medical art. Qigong means the cultivation of energy. And we are all energy. Dr. Joe's work is quantum physics. Qigong is basically quantum physics. They're super well married together, in terms of like, from my point of view, from a healing perspective. Um, and so I activated my inner healer. Like I don't I and it's not like, I had this like moment where it was like you are healed. It was just like, and then it's a lifetime job, right? This is,
Oh yeah.
when my clients, I tell them like it's a practice, not a pill. You
Yeah.
have to practice every single day, and you have to love yourself enough to do the work, and you have to like ask yourself when you're slipping back, is this loving to you? Is this loving to you? And then there's the food part, right? Which is also food is medicine, but the hierarchy of healing is you are what you think first, and then you are what you eat.
Yeah. Well, if you're not thinking correct, how can you make the correct food choices? Well, you really are one of Dr. Joe's success stories. So, from I've followed many of his seminars and talks, and for those people who have that are listening to us, you always hear of Dr. Joe refer to this woman came up on stage and she could see, and this woman, and you are one of those. You are one of those success stories, and your story speaks to testament of the power we have inside of us, which I think many of us innately know deep down, but we forget because, like you said, we get so caught up with the hustle and bustle and being pulled left and right and up and down. And we forget that we can do a lot more than we realize if we just stop and, as Dr. Joe says, sit in silence, just listen to what's being said from either the universe or our internal energy.
Yeah. Well, we have, our intuition, most people's intuition is turned off, right? Like there's just too much chatter to have intuition. I mean, and really it's because we spend 60 to 80% of our time in stress and in survival. And when you're in stress and survival, you can't actually, your brainwave state is in high beta. So you couldn't have a channeled message or download from the universe if you tried.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. It's
um,
really hard to sit in silence, though, when your brain is running at 90 miles per hour. It really is hard to stop that. It is a practice, like you said. You have to keep forcing yourself. No, Shemaine, don't look at the phone. Don't move, like even for 2 minutes.
Oh my God, yeah. And it's so important. I remember when I was first doing this work, my husband was like, "It's irresponsible for you not to read the news and look at the news." And I was like, "It is not irresponsible." I'm like, "You're programmed."
Mm,
He was a Wall Street guy, and he's like, "But this was my life. Information was my life. I had to know." I said,
yeah.
"But honey, like the news isn't the news anymore."
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and so it's like, so you're like addicted. You're like, okay, when's the next exciting thing gonna happen, right? Like we don't need exciting things to happen every day. Like we
It's
just need
not
to,
even, if you don't mind me saying, it's not even exciting. It's negativity. We're attached or addicted to the bad news. Oh no, what's next? The next war, who did this? So I don't even think it's the excitement. It's bad news keeps a lot of people going.
well, I guess I misspoke because what it does is it produces adrenaline. So what
Mhm.
I tell my clients is that, you're producing the same adrenaline by thoughts alone that those guys in squirrel suits jumping off of cliffs, right? Like they're getting that
Yeah.
like whoosh of adrenaline. They're like high-fiving each other after they safely land and don't die. And then they just move on, right? They've had the rush. They go and do whatever, in their camper or wherever they are. And but we in modern society, we produce stress chemicals by thought alone 70% of the time statistically. So and we're not getting that like squirrel suit rush. But we're getting the toxicity of the adrenaline and the cortisol, and it's addictive.
Yeah.
So we can't stop, right? We don't even know we're doing it. We don't know that loopy thought of this is horrible, blah, 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 or that, that news that, oh, stay tuned, come back for more, right? Like, and those um, news companies understand brain science.
Mhm.
So, and I've been saying this for years that basically it's weapons grade limbic hijacking.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's why I don't watch the news and I don't have any apps on my phone. But it doesn't mean that, like the energetics of the zeitgeist, you feel it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, and I have friends who just are like catatonic, and so how could I not feel that, right? That, what they're experiencing, what they're feeling. And yet, where I come back to is, what is love, right? And it's really about love. And and I actually decided this, I'm going to become a podcaster just like you. And I'm going to launch a show in January called A Loud Voice for Love.
Good for you.
And really just contrast the vibration of love and above, right, to like what isn't love, right? And why is that if you move up in the vibration that you just feel better? I mean, don't you feel better when your heart is open?
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
you feel better when like you just look at somebody lovingly instead of critically?
Mhm.
And so I think that we just need more people talking about the vibration of love, the return to love, the actions that produce the opposite of adrenaline, opposite of cortisol, what produces dopamine, what produces melatonin, serotonin. Um, I'm like spacing out on all the other lovely chemicals, but we need to focus on those. And then that's when life changes, right? When you just choose those as opposed to the negative ones. And then you stop watching the news because you're like, ooh.
Well, it's hurting you more than it's helping you. And a big factor of what you're talking about, helping people find the love again, I think we need to teach people how to understand love again, because there's been so much hurt in this world in the grand scheme of things, but also in the home, in relationships. And we hurt ourselves, some people knowingly, some people not. Like, so there's an understanding that's required there. And I think it's important for people to know, like, just like anything, it's going to be work, and it's at times it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
I think the inner work is the hardest work that you can do. I mean, I can go to the gym and push myself, and I can choose the right foods, but I constantly have to keep calling myself back. So I just want to share a little story with you that will help you
Yeah, love
understand.
it.
So I have to keep calling myself back all the time. And I speak to people in the gym all the time who are highly motivated, and we're all there for the same reason. But underneath all of that, there's something deeper. So I've been following Dr. Joe for years and years, but then you're an entrepreneur, podcaster, mom, wife, and you forget, and you just forget, and you're just doing your thing. And the first half of this year, I was so miserable, and I had no reason to be. My business is great. We went on vacation. We were in Arizona. Like, we don't have money worries, thankfully. But I was miserable and I was irritable and I was angry and I kept complaining. And we got to June and I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't keep going on like this. I'm so unhappy. I'm snapping at my husband and my kids. I'm not enjoying my work. But I knew, like, I could say out loud, I'm so unhappy. Why? Why am I so unhappy? And I knew, like, all the externals were taken care of. I didn't have a worry there. So why am I so unhappy? So I'm vacuuming the house one day and I put on my headphones, as you do, to learn. And the universe decided to intervene, and Dr. Joe's one of his conversations popped up on YouTube. So I pressed play. And again, I had been following his work, but I stepped away to work on the science and all other stuff. So I'm just playing, and really caught my attention and pulled me back in. And just like the basic kind of message. You can do this. You're the only one that can make yourself happy. You need to stop complaining. You need to, and it was just very basic message. So from June, because I have the luxury of kind of slowing down work over the summer, which is great, so I can focus on me. And from June right up till September, every day, I put on one of Joe's conversations, or I bought all his books, and I bought some other motivational speakers like Ed Milet, and even the woman who wrote The Secret. I can't remember her name, but a lot. Every day, I had to keep calling myself back. Every morning, I have to put this on, even for 20 minutes before I listen to anything else, to bring myself back in. Dr. Joe, as you know, mentions that before you move, as soon as you wake up in the morning, three things you're grateful for, which I have loads of things to be grateful for. And before you go to bed, three things. And then I started putting more into practice, just being in silence, just sitting in silence and feeling my energy. And I started going, well, I always walk, but my walks were different. I was tapping into myself and I was really enjoying my walks and just being with myself, and I was smiling and I could feel my energy change. And it just dawned on me like I'm the only one that can make myself happy. And I've shared this with my clients, and it did a 360 and realized I don't need to be a miserable cow. Like, there's no reason for this. And it just really, sometimes some of Joe's words were hard to hear, but I'm like, no, you're right. You are right. I need to do this. Like, it's all on me. And still, right up till this morning, right up till, I don't know, I was got out of the car. I'm speaking to the universe, please take away my anxiety. I'm putting my trust in you. I'm just constantly calling myself back in, and it is big work in progress. Because then you start to doubt, is this working? Is it not? But I know deep down it has worked and it is working. So it's constantly calling yourself back home all the time. And this is your home. So
It. It's very fascinating because last summer I was working with a woman who she's like, I don't have a home anymore, right? And then as we're doing the work, I just said to her, this is home.
mm,
And it like changed to everything for her. Like because she'd never like seen herself as the safe place, right? Like and this is the work. It's the work that we become our own safe place, that you know we're not, we've gotten rid of the whatever chatter that we had, that maybe little mean girl. I used to tell people I was my own, I was the worst mean girl ever for myself, right? Like,
mm,
and it's just all conditioning as women in particular. I mean, look, from when we're little girls, are we pretty enough? Are we thin enough?
mm.
Are we good enough, right? Are you a good girl?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um, if you're pretty enough, you'll get a husband, all this stuff, right? And I mean, we had, you know, girls like we had a tragedy in our community. This beautiful woman, became anorexic and she died in high school, right? And so, here it was right in front of us. It's like, for what? Like, she was gorgeous, like 30 pounds heavier, and she just t took all the messaging in and basically killed herself. I mean, not intentionally, but like, so here we are in a society that gives us, conditioned messages, right? Like, and even, and then, so that's the society at large. And then, your family, your religion, or your family's religion or whatever, right? And then kind of neighborhood you grow up in. Just think of the layers of conditioning that we carry forward that either hurt us or helped us, right? And for the most part, we also don't understand how the littlest traumas that we experience as little people can inform a lifetime of behaviors and beliefs.
Mhm.
And this is what the work is about, right? Is becoming so familiar with all of those thoughts. I mean, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday. And most of them are unconscious or subconscious thoughts. So they're just operating underneath the surface of our conscious awareness. and they're creating like disharmony in our bodies. And for some of us, it's for years and years and years.
Mm.
And but we're completely unaware. And I tell people about I don't know if you've read Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, and it's a beautiful book. She's an ethnobotanist, a Native American. She's just it's a stunning book, but she has a chapter called The Language of Animacy in it. And why do I tell you this? It's because she was trying to learn how to speak her native tongue,
Mm.
and she was struggling until she stepped back and she looked at the language versus, English.
Yeah.
And what she saw was that the Native American tongue had very few nouns and it was mostly verbs. And they didn't see anybody as a he or a she or an us or a them. And so our language is a language of separation. So that conditions us into being separate from everybody else and different from everybody else. So that's the work, right? This is like we have to kind of see that kind of conditioning. And then what do you want? Look, I want oneness, right? I mean, oneness is everything. We are all one. We're made from stardust. We're made the same, chemicals are in our all of our bodies. And plus more from eating toxic food. But but you know, we're so separate from nature. Nature's out there, right? It's out there. We're not part of nature. We are nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to go out in nature. I have to, it's crazy. And even as you're speaking, a term that came to mind was the term, are you surviving or are you thriving? I don't use it so much, but a lot of health practitioners and even motivators use it. And right there, you're thinking, well, am I surviving? Am I thriving? Am I half surviving? Like you're already separating yourself. Oh no, I'm not thriving, therefore I'm not doing as good as other people. And it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like because of the energy aspect of Qigong and also Dr. Joe's work and quantum physics, we're 99.9999% energy, which means that this meat suit is 0.0001% of our experience. So yes, it's like we're functioning in a world where we can't see most of our experience, right? So, and guess what? That makes the invisible super powerful. Um, but when you think about that, how can we, like heal from outside of us, right? Like it's like we have to like see that this is an energy body, right? Where frequency and vibration have an impact on us. And, from thoughts, right? From our own thoughts to outside thoughts. And then there's a frequency and vibration to food, right? And I always tell people, I ask the question, what do you think the consciousness of a dandelion is? I'm asking you, what do you think consciousness of a dandelion?
I would say love or serenity.
So think about a dandelion in the United States. Come spring, there's an all-out war on dandelions, right? The ChemLawn truck, the lawnmowers, right? Like, it's like they must go. They are
Right.
polluting our perfect green lawn. And but this dandelion, you know, has it is what you said is correct, but it has an even more powerful energy. It grows no matter what, right? So I see that as courage. I see that as like bravery, right? So in the springtime, there's dandelion and greens now available in the grocery store. I wouldn't recommend picking them on the side of the road, right? Like,
Yeah, not
but
anymore.
when I eat dandelion greens, not only do I know I'm eating something that's really healthy for my liver and detoxing, but I connect with its essence, right? It's the courage. This plant that has it's fearless. It's like I want to live. I'm greeting the sun, right? So some of this work too is to shift our consciousness around like how magnificent the plants around us are and how they are experiencing the life. Like I also my qigong master, he often asks us, to eat, just have like an apple cleanse, and he says, look, this apple has experienced all the seasons. you know, the winter, the tree is dormant, it's collecting this energy from the earth. And then in the spring, it just all bubbles up and it comes and it creates a bud. And then the buds turn into leaves. And then the little flowers turn into apples. And then they, have the whole summer of sunshine. They collect all the sunshine. And then in the fall, they're ready. And so that apple is more than just this luscious, delicious fruit, but it holds and contains the energy of a full season of nature.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when I tell that to my clients, they're just like blown away. And I was like, and so if you eat an apple with that consciousness, you don't need to eat more than a few apples a day if you want to just give your system a rest or a reset. So, there's so much out there for us. And but the thought but it's also having the thought about the consciousness of what you're eating, which is really important. And I was speaking to a client um, this morning, but I had watched, she had produced this really interesting documentary, and she was involved in helping the Boston public school systems move from kind of dead looking food to alive food, right? And kind of really shifting the entire food service back to, cooked food, like on premises, actually green broccoli. And she added love as one of the ingredients. And so, but bec she said it was crazy. She said because of the bureaucracy, she said the FDA doesn't see love as an ingredient, so you have to remove that from
Oh my.
from the list of ingredients. I'm like, this is the kookiness that we're in, right? Like love is probably should be the top ingredient, and that vibration and those the doc I watched the documentary, it's called Eat Up. And I mean the transformation in the children from eating, I mean, they were like throwing all the food out, they weren't really eating enough food, and then they had behavioral issues because they're starving, right? They're just grumpy, and as soon as they changed to like local food, cooked fresh, it's like it was a massive transformation. So, and love is part of the ingredients. So I don't know, I'm rambling, but I just think
Well,
like,
you think of my granny, as we call them in Ireland, your grandma or your granny, and I think all of us, when we think of our grannies or our granddads or an aunt, there's someone who made the homemade meals, and every once in a while you'd go to their house for dinner. And you could taste it tasted different because your my granny made everything with love, and it was the whole experience was warming. It wasn't just the food, it was the energy, it was the love, it was the laughter, it was all warming. And there, we have a saying in Ireland, maybe you do here as well, is we always say to our kids, you'll miss your mother's cooking when you move out. Like, there's nothing like your mother's cooking. And I have two boys, and as much as they complain about eating healthy and boring, they will miss my cooking when they're gone. Like, so there's a lot to be said for it. Love being part of whether it's the ingredient or the actual energy that cooks the meal. But it's crazy. I mean, we that the FDA is the whole rabbit hole. It's
no,
not.
I know, but it was just sort of like she sort of was like, you guys have missed the point. Like, but she was super grateful that she was able to like have that impact on shifting every single school in the Boston public school
And you'd
system.
think, though, that whoever reviewed that in the FDA, they would just laugh and give it the stamp of approval. Okay, but whatever.
I know, whatever, exactly. But, that's also conditioning, right? Like that's not technically an ingredient. And that's where the energy piece comes back in, right? Like, how could it not be an ingredient when we're 99.9999% energy?
But I suppose they would argue with you. Well, do you have any research? Do you have any
Yeah, there's a
compelling
whole
research?
field called
Yeah.
quantum physics, and they've proven that the Newtonian model of the atom having a nucleus was debunked and it's actually empty. Like, how was that for some science?
Yeah. Well, there you go. So I want to just go back a bit to the self-healing aspect because you clearly are, like I said, you are your own testimony. You're an amazing success story. And just if you don't mind, touch on just one more time, why do you think so many people struggle to not self-heal, but even believe that they can heal themselves and not put their complete trust into conventional medicine or big pharma or whatever?
Well, first of all, we'll go back to the watching television thing, and all you need to just flip on the TV and like, I think commercials are probably played more than the actual television program. And I'd say 90% of those are pharmaceutical ads. So at least in this day and age, you're just being told, like, you have that, we have this, like, here's a solution, right? So there's unconscious conditioning happening at that level. The other thing is that, I believe there are three things that we need for two things that we need to heal, and then one thing that we need to do. The first thing is to believe that you can, right? And where does that belief come from, though? And that belief comes from a deep knowing, and that belief, that deep knowing, can only come from a place of quiet, right? You started with that, like when you can just find that moment of quiet, touch, you got to dig deep. I mean, it's just like, I mean, for me, it was just like going blind was not an option, right? Like, and it's like, and I just knew that I knew we have the power within us. Our bodies, like, why would we human beings be created to be sick,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so the belief was strong. And then now I have the knowing because I did it, right? So first you need to believe. And I think what you just, read, study, watch the testimonials on Dr. Joe's website. He just there's a lovely documentary out called Source. It's within you. He's doing the largest meditation studies in the world right now to show that when you actually do use, your mind through meditation, that, your blood changes, cancer markers go down. We more of the happy chemicals are in your body. There's an up regulation of your gene expression instead of a down regulation of your gene expression. The studies are being done. The information, the science is available now. So there's information to help you believe if you don't believe yourself, right? So go find the information. Um, and then once when you believe, you do have to you have to make radical changes. I mean, I wasn't, I used to, get up and go, either go to a spin class or go for a walk or run or whatever. The first thing I do is I journal. I get up and I write down what am I thinking right at this moment. And if it's not a good thought, I do not take my pen off the page until I have written myself happy. And then I go into meditation because I want to enter meditation, in that space where I can create, right? I don't want to enter with that, like, oh my God, I have this on my to-do list and that person said that to me yesterday, or my husband said something that annoyed me, whatever, right? Like, get it all out. And then, like, get yourself back to that place where it's like, you have choices, Carol. You can take action, you could do this, you could do that. Okay, I know where I'm at. Let's go meditate. And then your meditation, you have to have a clear intention and you have to marry that with an elevated emotion. You have to like feel, like for me, I just imagine what it would be like to be free again. Like losing, like your eyesight is, it takes all your freedom away. And so it's like I imagined being free again, right? Being able to drive, do whatever I want, like see you on the computer, read. all those things that define freedom. And I just imagined what that was again. And mostly what I did was I imagined driving, right? That was the freedom that was, I felt most like, oh my God, like just
Yeah.
like imagine myself sitting back,
Roof
driving.
down.
Exactly. And I connected with that like every day. And then once you heal or you're healing, I truly, truly believe there's an unwritten contract in the universe that we have to become the healers, right? We have to share our journey and our information because I don't think there's a single person on this planet that does not need to heal something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the more of us who can be out there offering our version, because there's going to be plenty of people, we live in an abundant universe, that somebody will resonate with what I am offering. And so far, so good, like,
Yeah, you took the word right out of my mouth there as you were speaking. I was like, there's always someone, at least one person, who's going to resonate with your story or your way of teaching. May not be for everybody, but we help one, they help one, and it's a big ripple effect. So earlier you mentioned when you got the diagnosis and you got sick. And you're being pulled left, right, center, and the people pleaser, and I can do everything. This is the mom, this is the modern woman is no, no, I've got this. I can do everything. We're almost kidding ourselves. We're fooling ourselves into thinking we can do everything. And I have had my own health issues, and I out of the people I know, I at least thought, well, I'm the healthiest, I'm the fittest. This is what I do. I know all the tips and tricks. And then it hit me literally smack in the face. If anything is going to make me sick, it's stress. It's nothing else. It is the stress. And now I can recognize it, and I've got into good practice of saying no to a lot of things. And not no, I don't want to do it. It's like, no, I don't need to do this. This doesn't serve me. Um, so I had mentioned to you before we started talking, I wanted to get into the stress factor. And we're down to our last few minutes now. So, two questions then. D- I'm sure, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you think it was the stress, the bubble of stress that really drove you to become sick in that context of things? And then how do you think stress is influencing society and the world on that larger scale? I think stress is prevalent everywhere now. Nobody is exempt.
yeah. So yes, I think stress was a huge factor, and I would never have described myself as stressed out. But
Mm.
when I started doing the work, right, and I started writing down those thoughts, right? So the first thing, I was like, it was my to-do list, right? Like, like you wake up and you're like, oh, we got to do this, I got to do this, I got that. Oh, I'm still like that person said that mean thing to me yesterday, but right. So without even like having a sip of coffee, I'm already a stress kitten, right? Like, and so just that in and of itself is that awareness, right? The awareness is so key. And that's why I recommend journaling is like one of the most powerful tools. And a lot of people resist it. And I was like, well, just start with bullet points, like, and then eventually it'll become your best friend. It'll become your therapist, like, um, but you know, I'm going to just talk about through the lens of the traditional Chinese medicine and Qigong. You know, most modern disease is a liver system disorder. So,
Mhm.
and guess what? My eyes are connected to the liver, like in Chinese medicine. What
Yeah.
do you, right? And 70 to 80% of disease is a liver system disorder. And the liver is the organ system that processes our emotions and stress.
Yes, yes.
So there you have it. And what is stress? It's when our brain, when we're in survival. And when we're in survival, guess what? Our, our pupils dilate, our focus narrows, blood rushes out to our extremities, and our digestion slows down, our heart rate increases, and, to prepare us to run, fight, or hide. But we do this 70% of our time in modern society. So we take something that was very adaptive when we were cavemen, and it's become very maladaptive as modern humans. And so we are producing all those stress chemicals and we can't think clearly, right? So that knocks the brain and body out of homeostasis. And if you're stressed out for a good chunk of your adult life, or maybe even take that from being a child, um, and the next thing you know, disease happens, right? And that's why, Chinese medicine can really see the connection between not processing our emotions to a liver system disorder, and then how we end up with all these crazy diseases. And just and on the autoimmunity epidemic, right? Because I have an I well, I don't, my body had, um but in traditional Chinese medicine, they don't see the body would never attack itself. So from their lens, it's we have too many inputs. And what are too many inputs? It's stress, right? Like a great stress. And so your body just gets confused, and it's going to go to your weak point, right? And so for me, it was my eyes.
Yeah. And this is something I remind people of is your body is not necessarily trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you alive and manage with all these external factors as best it can. It's not trying to hurt you, but um many of us I think need to become more conscious of this stress. Like where is it coming from? That's the first question. Well, I suppose the first question is, am I stressed? Then
Right.
where is it coming from? How would you recommend someone creates awareness of their stress? Like, what are the first few things they should do to create that awareness?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, journaling for one, it's like really connect with yourself, right? Like what am I thinking? And is that a good thought or a bad thought? If you're having a negative thought, it's likely producing stress, right? And then check in with your energy. Because if you're tired or always sort of logy, like you have energy leaks, which means that you're likely stressed in some way. And so like figure out where are those energy leaks coming from. A lot of people like, oh, that coworker is such a, energy vampire, right? And it's like, well, that's an energy leak for you then. So is maybe you have to figure out a solution on how to deal with that person. Um, and so I think that journaling, checking in on your energy levels, right? I think that's a big key because I think in a lot of us push to have some more coffee, right? Like,
Yeah.
um,
That's
you
it, isn't
know,
it? Have some more coffee because I have too much to do.
right. Isn't it cuckoo? And then observe yourself. What are your coping habits, right? Are you escaping? Are you drinking? Are you like smoking a lot of pot? Whatever. I'm not, I don't have anything against any of those, but if you're doing them often or too often to like numb yourself, right? Guaranteed it's because you're stressed out or you have a trauma that you're not dealing with that is causing stress underneath the surface of your conscious awareness.
Yeah, so the comfort food or zoning out in front of Netflix or even the scrolling on the phone,
Oh,
which
yeah.
hurts us so much more than we realize, comparing ourselves to other people and getting involved in drama. Like, but technically that is self-medicating because you're trying to zone out.
Right. Yeah.
So, one thing I'm going to comment on is as we're speaking, for those listening, on camera, you can see the sun is glaring into Carole's eye. Like, and that's happened to me a few times. But I was like, oh my God, how blessed is she now that she can be glared in the eye and she can feel that sun against her and stuff like that's such a blessing. And these so often we overlook this stuff. It's an inconvenience, it's annoying, but oh my God, I'm here. I can feel this. I'm still here. No matter what life throws at me, I'm still here.
Oh yeah. And if we're still here, we still have a purpose.
There's one thing I want to ask you before we finish up, and this is a little bit selfish for me,
Okay.
but It's going to help loads of people. I know it is. So I mentioned how I do a lot of work. By no means am I on your level, but I'm at least conscious and I am aware to pull myself in as much as possible and do my practices. Something bothered me this morning. Someone said something and it bothered me. And I don't know if it didn't make me angry, kind of frustrated me. It annoyed me, like it bothered me, if that makes sense. I can't put an exact emotion. It was almost like, I wish you hadn't sent that. You've just kind of annoyed me. And as I'm going through my day, I even said, God, please take this away from me. This thought is taking up too much space in my head. Let it, and I've said to myself, just let it go, just let it go. But it's still lingering and it's still affecting me. What would you advise to me or anyone who can't let go of something? And it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. I've lots of other stuff on my mind, but this thought is just hanging around. It won't go away.
Well, it's there for you, right? Like there's something about whatever that was that is a lesson for you, or it's an opportunity for you to explore, right? And I think a lot of times it could just be eh, something in whatever was said triggered you. And what is that trigger? And why is that trigger there? And then you really have to go down the rabbit hole and, you know, journal, do whatever you can and just figure it out. And it's really it's simple but not simple. And I would take it, I always tell people to come back to the to Dr. Joe's model, which is your thoughts, your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made up of your thought, how you think, right? So, what are your thoughts? Like, what are your choices, right? So, even this, like, you have a choice, right? To like let it bother you or not let it bother you. So, if you're choosing to let it bother you, like, then let me figure out, like, why and what actions I'm going to take. Because maybe I do need to speak to this person and tell them that wasn't a nice thing, right? Or whatever. And then you're gonna have an experience around that after you take that action and then a feeling, right? So I think that when you can put that in, just journal in that way, you could really begin to connect the dots. And like I said, you could use this just as your own therapist and figure it out yourself. And then the other thing I always tell people is, you know, when you don't feel great, sad or frustrated or anything, it's like, it's usually when our thoughts, words, and deeds are not aligned. So somewhere in there, there's something not aligned for you, right? In the way you're thinking. And so you have to figure it out. Like, and there's it's like once again, there's no magic pill in any of this. This is shadow work. A lot of people call it shadow work. This is, you've got to be willing to light a match in a dark room. Um, and and then, and then you get to choose. You get to choose a new thought and you get to choose a new, action and you get to like feel a new experience. And why wouldn't you want to choose that which is going to make you feel good instead of that which makes you feel bad?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I hope that made sense.
It
And I know.
did. And as you're speaking, I don't know. I think I knew this, but as you're speaking, I think the universe just told me it's that me and this person are not aligned. We're just not matched. Our frequency is different. And that's okay. You don't have to be aligned with everybody. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and watching the sun
I
slowly
know.
go
No, it's
against
like,
your face.
I thought I was in a good place, but I forget that the sun changed, during the season. It's lower in the sky. So
Call it in Ireland the November sun because every time you drive, it's just straight in your eyes and you
yeah,
can't see
yeah. So
anything.
now it's just straight in my Zoom eyes. So
Well, Carol, this has been absolutely fantastic. I'm sure people are going to love this. I've loved this. So if nobody else has loved this, I've loved this. So please tell everyone where they can follow you and find out more about you. And if everyone's lucky, maybe you'll come back on for a second visit sometime.
I would love that. And so my website is www.loveeatheal.com. And you could set up, yeah, I offer a 30-minute free like consultation. I'm always up for somebody just emailing me directly, which is Carol with an E at loveeatheal.com. And then I'm on all the socials as well, not all of them.
Others.
Like Facebook, Love Eat Heal, Instagram, Love Eat Heal. Um, and LinkedIn, I'm just Carole Murko. So anyhow.
Yeah. I had a look at your LinkedIn. I really like your LinkedIn page and your profile there. Straight to the point, very clear. I like that. But I'm going to follow you on Instagram now.
Okay, awesome.
But like you, I'm not on TikTok because I'm not getting sucked down that rabbit hole. No way. I never did Snapchat or anything, so there's limits to
Yeah.
what we will
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and I'm not on Twitter anymore. So that
Yeah,
was just
neither am I. Uh, it always challenged me. I never could navigate it properly. I'm like, no, I don't need this.
And I'll tell you, it's like in the olden days, like when I had a different company, when Twitter first started, you could actually make contact with real people, right? Real decision makers, like like before this whole influencer thing happened. And it was amazing. And then it became like this noisy, crowded space. And I'm like, I'm out.
There's too much. There's a million likes. There's a million comments. Yeah, there's too much.
And it's not in alignment with what I'm doing.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Well, thank you again, Carol, for your time. We will chat soon. I hope you have a great day.
thank you.